kitchen. What I'm making right now are beer pretzels and a cheese dip. So I'm going to get started right away because I want to get these made. So I'm going to explain to you how much ingredients I have and how to put it together while I'm doing it. Here I have a half a cup of warm water, and I'm going to put it into my KitchenAid bowl. And I'm going to add, I have 2 tablespoons of brown sugar here. I'm going to add that until the sugar melts. And then I'm going to add my yeast. Let the yeast dissolve for about 5 minutes. You want to check your water if you heated it up in the microwave. Make sure it's not too warm. So I'm just going to go ahead and sprinkle this yeast over the water with the brown sugar in it. It's just 1 packet. It's a 1/4 ounce. You want the dough hook. So here I have 1 stick of butter melted. You don't want it too hot, so be careful, let that cool down. And I have a cup of beer. So here I have 1 stick of butter melted. You don't want it too hot, so be careful, let that cool down. And I have a cup of beer. This is a wheat beer. I think you have to use a can opener, a bottle opener for this. There's a bottle opener, you guys, for people who don't know what one looks like. I haven't used a bottle opener in a long time. So I'm going to go ahead, I'll pour this in here. I want a little more. This wasn't quite a cup. So we also want to warm up the beer a little bit. So this beer feels really good. It's nice and warm. Then we have our melted butter. And I have this is my little bowl. I'm going to put some oil in here, just enough to make it so the dough doesn't stick when it's ready to rise for an hour. So I'm just going to go ahead and pour maybe a tablespoon in here. What you'll do is you'll drop the dough in here and just flip it over. You cover it with a little plastic wrap if you want, but if it's well oiled, you may not need to. So my yeast is foaming up in my bowl. So I'm going to add my butter and my beer. This is 1 teaspoon of salt. And I have 2 cups of cake flour, and I have 2½ cups of all-purpose flour. And I'm going to add both of them completely. Just let it go on low. I'm going to let it mix for a couple of minutes on very low, and then I'm going to raise the speed until the dough pulls away from the sides. I'm going to let this beat on medium speed until the dough comes away from the side of the bowl. I'll let you know how long that takes. I have forgotten to add my 1 teaspoon of salt, so I'm going to let that knead in. This is now pulled away from the side of the bowl. It took a few minutes. So I'm going to take it off the dough hook, and I'll put it in the bowl with a little bit of the oil. See, it comes right off the hook. It's not even all that sticky. There's my dough. I'm going to make this into a little ball before I throw it in the oil. So let's use a little pastry, a little dock scraper, because it has a nice coating of oil on top. I took a very hefty tablespoon of butter. I don't want to make too much. Just going to make a little bowl of cheese dip for the pretzels. Wire whisk is a wonderful tool for this. So I'm going to turn off the flame. I'm going to add a good hefty tablespoon of flour. Mix that in pretty good. Then I'm going to add a half a cup of milk. I'm not going to add all of it at one time. I add a little bit to get that mixed into the flour and the butter. I like to always do that with the flame off. You don't need to keep cooking it. It's already going to thicken up. So I'm going to add the rest of this. And that's really it. For the milk and the flour and the butter. Then I'm going to add like a half a teaspoon, this is mustard. A little squirt of mustard and a little squirt of Worcestershire. Probably like a half a teaspoon of each. You don't have too much sauce here. You don't want it to be too strong. Okay. So I have my flame back on and I'm stirring pretty fast with my whisk. Don't want it to thicken up too quickly. Now I have a flat bottom spoon. And if this gets too thick, you could add a little bit more. I'm going to add a little more milk, maybe add a quarter of a cup more milk. Always bring your whisk back in. Bring that to a little simmer just to cook that flour a little bit, thicken it up. I'm going to add a little salt, just a little pinch of salt, a little pepper. So now I'm going to turn off this flame, and I'm going to add my cheese. I have a good cup of cheese here. It's a combination of Gouda cheese and cheddar cheese. And I'm going to add that with my whisk. I'm just going to add a little bit and whisk it right in. And a little more, whisk it in. There you go. Here's your cheese sauce for your pretzels. So here I've got my dough on my board, and I'm going to just knead it a little while so I can get the air out. Sometimes if you have too much air in your bread, it will taste a little yeasty. So now I'm going to cut it into 16 pieces. And you want to be organized with this, so you don't cut one of the pieces more times than you should. Sometimes I do end up with an extra piece. So try to keep them in order, which clearly here I'm not doing. But when you're rolling out the pretzels into their sticks, it's important that they're the same fatness. The length of the pretzels can all be different. As long as they fit in the pan that you're going to steam them in, it will be fine. That's all that's important. So there you go. You see, they're all about the same fatness, and I think I do have 16 there. So here I've got my water boiling and 2 tablespoons of baking soda, which I'm sifting over the water because it's lumpy. It's just some, you may not have to do that. I'm sure it would dissolve right in. So now I'm putting them in the water. I'm going to let them cook for about 1.5 minutes. And by the way, that soda will help the pretzels brown a little bit in the oven. Now I've got a strainer. I use this to take hard-boiled eggs or potatoes out of water. So it works well for this. And you want to use something large because when you go under the pretzel, you're going to see the pretzel's a little floppy. And when you put it on your parchment paper, try to put it right where you want it to be for when you bake it, because it's almost impossible to move them because they get a little sticky from the water. So I'm going to go ahead and do all of them. Now I'm going to take an egg wash, which is 1 egg, maybe a teaspoon of water, beat that up, and brush them over the pretzels. Now I'm going to liberally put kosher salt on. And they go into the oven for 20 minutes at 400 degrees. And they'll be baked when they're nice and golden brown. So there they are, fresh out of the oven, and they are awesome with that cheese sauce. Just like going out to the restaurant, maybe even better. So I hope you guys enjoy these, and I'm so glad that you're joining me today and watching this video. So subscribe and like if you think you might like this and other videos. Thanks for joining us. Bye.